welcome to another episode of Metal Mastermind. Co-founder, co-host here, Jason Stallworth, and also co-founder, co-host, The Great.
Ken Candelas. What up, my man?
Dude, did you say this was a self-therapy session today?
Yes.
It kind of is. So guys, Ken and I were always talking before the podcast, and I was telling him about a conversation I was having with myself. By the way, raise your hand if you talk to yourself a lot. Those of you who raised your hand, hey, that's a good thing. I think that's actually healthy. It's where a lot of ideas spawn from, and you can be real honest with yourself and just dig deep and get to know you a little better. But in this conversation I have with myself on the way home from the gym the other day, I got to thinking about your fans, people who support you. And guys, let me step back for just a moment. Even if you're not a full-time or even part-time musician, whatever you're doing in life, understand that this carries over to really every aspect of life. Your fans, meaning the people that support you, versus your critics. And what we want to talk about is, who are you giving attention to? Even if it's not necessarily attention directed to that person, like a conversation or words exchange, but in your mind, who's renting space in your head? Is it your fans, the people who support you, or is it the critics? So, Ken, sometimes we make up stuff. There are critics in our life, right? There are critics. If you put a song out there or you do something, try to do something great, put something out there, you're going to have critics. Those exist. But I think sometimes, and Ken, you can tell me if you've experienced this, that we will make up stuff in our head. We will make up critics in our head. Well, people are going to say this, they're going to say that, they're going to think that. And a lot of that stuff's not even true, but we just make it up, and your mind will just kind of take off and run with that. Have you ever experienced that?
Yeah, totally.
Kind of sucks.
Yeah, no, sometimes we kind of let the better part of ourselves go, and we sort of focus on the negative of what people are telling us, and I think that's just a very natural response for us, because we're socially, inclined beings, and so when we're talking about how we associate ourselves amongst the populace, I think that's just a very natural response for us to feel that way. I think it's a matter of how do you control how much of that you internalize versus what you let go. That can be hard.
That can be tough, yeah. And a lot of times I think, again, even if, like, put the critics aside for a second, you're thinking about releasing this song or this album, and sometimes we can go through our heads because of the stuff we've been exposed to, the negativity, maybe critics in our past, maybe even critics of others. Like, you might have a favorite composer, Ken, but you've seen people criticize them, right? So we start letting that stuff kind of seep in our head, and we start thinking, well, this is what people are going to say, this is how they're going to criticize, and we just go down this really dark path that doesn't even exist. Will you have critics? Sure, maybe you will. Maybe you won't. There's no rule that says you have to have critics, though. When you're putting stuff out there, you can usually bank on you're going to have some critics. If you don't have any, then you're probably not out there enough, because people just love to bash and criticize. It makes them feel better, I guess, about maybe not pursuing their goals. Well, I'm sitting here doing nothing, so, well, this person, they can't be doing something great, so let me just bash them. That'll make me feel better, about not doing anything. But yeah, I find myself, more than anything, letting my mind wander into what I think other people may think, aka the critics. So I had to be careful of that, man. I had to be careful with that. And one thing I've really tried to do a better job of, and I don't get a ton of negative comments. I don't want to make it sound like I'm griping about negative comments or anything. Metal Mastermind, Ken, you guys are awesome, by the way. you guys are
Yeah,
you guys are so great to us. And I don't expect every comment on our YouTube channel to be phenomenal. I expect some criticism, and then, if it's relevant and constructive, and that's fine. Like, I did a video. The one video, by the way, real quick, guys, sorry to be all over the place, but our YouTube channel, Metal Mastermind, Ken and I's channel, well, your channel, it's not just Ken and I's channel, it's your channel. We just hit 10,000 subscribers, so thank you so much. But
I think I have something here for us. Right?
Yes, dude, yes. Oh, awesome.
There you go.
That's either the opening of champagne or a really cool seashell that you put up to your ear. It kind of sounds like both. But there's one video that we put out on how to turn a metal riff into a song that it really just, for whatever reason, YouTube said, hey, I think people might like this. So it started putting in front of people's faces and boom, it took off. So that's really helped the channel grow. But of course, like I said, when you're really out there and more people are starting to hear and see your stuff, you're going to be open and subjected to criticism. And, there's one part in there where I said, well, if you can, you're playing in the key of E minor, we can play an F sharp here. And I'm just talking about a single note. And people are like, well, technically it's an F sharp diminished. You should know that. And it's like, okay, I get it, but that's not the concept of the video. And of course, I'm sitting there thinking about the comment, and I find myself doing this on my own channel. Sometimes I'll just like stew in one negative comment. But guys, what we really should be doing is we should not be giving attention to the negativity, or at least not as much attention to that as we're giving attention to the people that support us. If you think about it, we only have so much energy. If you give energy to negativity, if you give energy to someone that's the quote unquote critic, well, you're now stealing energy away from what you could be given to the people that support you. So why would you waste energy on somebody that's criticizing you? Why would you waste that there when you could be giving that energy to the people that support you? In my eyes, and this is just kind of something I'm waking up to more and more every day. The people that support me, the people that support Ken and Metal Mastermind, and the things we do individually, those are the people that are worthy of the attention. They're worthy.
Right.
They're supporting us, man. So why would you take anything away from that? So I'm starting to really mentally have a different mental approach to any type of criticism. Again, I don't get a whole lot. Now, Ken, you and I, we're not Rick Beato. We don't have, 3 something million subscribers. I'm sure people with the millions of subs, they get a lot of criticizing, negativity, and that sort of thing. We're not anywhere close to that.
Yeah, it's inherent with that kind of territory.
It is. But even then, you rarely ever do you see these people, the Ola Englands of the world, they rarely do you ever see them giving any kind of attention to the criticizers. And I'm sure they have a lot of critics, right? But instead they pour back into the people that support them by giving them the content that they want. So, yeah, I mean,
there's also like the part of it where it's like, who is saying the criticize comment, like, sure, if it's just some troll under the bridge who's just trying to be gnarly at you,
Yeah.
I mean, you should not listen to these kinds of people, even if they have maybe they're not necessarily bad people. No one's necessarily saying that. They're just maybe disgruntled about a particular thing, and they may be right about that thing too. But is it really, like, what are the weight of the words that I'm hearing come from this person? Like, what kind of influence does this person have that I should recognize in order to take it seriously? Versus, if you had somebody who, for me it was Mike Romeo. That was a criticism that I took with great care because I know the guy's an expert. So it's how is the criticism formed and framed, and the intention behind the criticism. Is it to help you in the best way, or is it just to be a pain in your butt? Like these kinds of critiques, you gotta weigh what's important. And if it's going to be something that just takes away time and energy from you, and you're going to revel in that, it's not going to help you. So I totally understand where you're coming from. And when you get something like YouTube, where there's so many strangers who come and say these things, even if they're far and few between, it's like, well, give me a reason why I should listen.
It's a good point. It's a very good point. Are you like this, big name producer, and you're really trying to help me? You're, and I think it goes, again, to your point, to further on that. What is their intent behind their comment? Is it really to genuinely help you? I think Michael Romeo wanted to help Ken Candelas because you're friends with him, and he wanted to see, he wanted to give you some advice. And I think even if you hadn't taken his advice and went another direction, that would have been fine too. He probably still would have helped, right? But his intent behind that was truly to help you. Whereas most people leaving negative comments, they don't really care about helping you. That's not their intent, right?
Right.
So, I mean, what does it matter? And, again, guys, this goes over to many aspects, if not most all aspects of life. You think about your job. If those of you who are at a job, you like your gig, so you want to move up, right? As you move up the chain, and I encourage you to do that. If you're at a job and this is what you like, it's what you do, you're passionate about it, or at least you semi enjoy it, and it's where you see yourself staying, um, do move up. I think it's a good thing to move up because why not, right? You can build yourself up as a leader, and then you have influence over others, and you can help those people. It's been said. I think John C. Maxwell said this: a great leader develops other great leaders. So why not try to put yourself in that position and go for it? But as you go throughout that journey of moving up, you will have some naysayers. You will have people that think you're not worthy of that because they're not willing to do what you did, right? So you're always going to have that, and that the intent coming behind those criticisms, well, that intent's probably not going to be pure. That intent's probably not going to be to help you. So,
Yeah,
Ken, to your point, it does matter. It does matter who's providing that criticism.
absolutely. Yeah, and I mean, I've always loved the concept of the five people around you, right? And I
Oh,
think
yeah.
it always comes to things like that where the value that you're taking away from some of the people that are saying these things, if you feed into that, you're just going to be more like them. I think, and you don't want to become the troll, right? You
No.
start growing thick hairs on your arms and you're just like, what's happening?
Yeah.
And then so and I talked about this with my students as well. My students many times they struggle with self-confidence, and they kind of feed into some of the comments that people say about their stuff. And I tell them, dude, you are where you need to be right now. Like, the fact that you're here in my class means that you're trying to grow, and you want to put your best foot forward. And in order to do that, you have to expose yourself, and that's vulnerable. So what you're doing is in part courageous, because you have to get over the hump of you being alone in your own room and nobody has to hear what you have, because it's comfortable. When you put your stuff out there, even if it's in front of a classroom, never mind the internet, like, you're going to have comments and critiques, and people are going to express their thoughts and feelings about what you're doing. And sometimes it may not be what you want to hear. And that's a fear, right? That's a fear of letting go of, letting the universe kind of just take that moment and expose your most vulnerable self. So my students, I always tell them to, it's a skill, it's a thing that you have to develop learning. You have to create your iron skin, and always be a sponge to knowledge and wanting to absorb new things to grow and learn from. But you don't want to necessarily let people touch that soft underbelly of what it is that is your either your ego or yourself. That part of you, you don't need to let it bash you day in and day out. You can choose to ignore the things that don't serve you. And letting go of that is going to be so key for you to be able to move forward, because then that puts less pressure on yourself because of what people think about you. We never want to do that. That can always be a detriment to our workflow. It can be a detriment to our creativity. Your creativity really feeds off of energy, right? So if you're putting in negative energy into what you're doing, it's going to feed off of that, and it may be demotivating. It may be an obstacle that stops you from really enjoying your process. So I always urge you guys to just, let it be what it is. People are going to always have their thoughts and opinions. You're never going to please everybody. So just do what it is that you like to do, because really at the end of the day, and this is something like Rick Rubin has said recently on certain podcasts, he was like, your art, um, the whole point of your art and what quality art means to you is that you're happy with it, not somebody else. You have to really be happy with what you've created. So make the best thing that you can create, because at the end of the day, it's yours. It's your legacy. It's your music, your messaging, your brand, whatever you want to call it. It's yours at the end of the day. And your opinion is really the only one that truly matters here, because you're the one that gave birth to it. So always think about that. I love that Rick Rubin. He's a very philosophical producer.
Well, I like your quote that you just came up with here. Ignore things that don't serve you. Just ignore it. You do have to build thick skin. You've got to have armor skin. And, Ken, you mentioned another very important thing to this is that you have a choice to do that, guys. No one is forcing you to harp on the negative comments, the negativity, the criticisms. No one's forcing you to do that, right? That's your choice to do that. You're making the conscious decision to stay in that mental space there. And a lot of people will allow potential criticism. Again, sometimes we drum up stuff in our own mind that's not even there. But sometimes we let that prevent us from putting our art out there, or that song out there, or playing live in front of someone. You guys know, I encourage you. I don't care if you're a bedroom guitar player or you're in a full-fledged band. I think you should always perform in front of someone, right? Even if you
Yep.
don't think that you can sing, well, you know what? I'm going to tell you this: do it anyway. How do you like that? Just
Yeah.
do it anyway. Don't worry about it, right? Build that up. I believe musicians should be playing in front of people because it builds a different skill. Ken, you've always been in bands. I've always played live, and we can attest to that it's a completely different skill outside of just playing an instrument or just singing. So we encourage you guys to get out there and do it at whatever capacity, even if it's just an open mic. And that also helps build that I don't give a crap about what other people think. That builds the confidence. You're like, okay, I did this. I can do it again. Second time is much easier. Third time, even easier. And then, it goes on. You just develop that skill. And it's part of the confidence building process. But yeah, Ken, what you said is super important, though. And hey, write this down somewhere and quote Ken Candelas on it, or quote Metal Mastermind. Ignore the things that do not serve you.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Another student asked me this question about, like, Ken, like learning drums, and how long should I practice? That was his question. And I said, oh, that's a good question. I said, well, here's the thing, man. Like, these things are very subjective. You practice really as long as you need to, but what you practice and the quality of the practice session is really where it's at. It's not about just how long you practice, right? You want to, and I always point people to Alfred Potter for these sorts of things, because Alfred's such an efficient musician. He really is. He's like the most efficient, economical musician I've ever met, which is amazing. And his degree of practicing is so methodical, but it makes sense to me. And you choose the thing that you're bad at, he says. You choose the thing that you're bad at, and you focus on that for a bit of time. It could be even 15 minutes to 30 minutes, right? And that's what you focus on, what you're bad at. And then as soon as you start to feel like crap about it, then move on to something you're good at. And then you do this cycle of building yourself up to then get the courage to do what's hard again. And that's, I feel like, in many ways, kind of what it's like to be, a musician in as an indie artist, doing something like social media, right? It's like you're doing good. Then the first time somebody says something bad about you, it kind of hurts, because it's like, oh man, like I've never got this response before, and it feels bad, right? But then you wallow in it longer probably than you should. Then you get back on the horse, you do more content, people like it. and then all of a sudden another bam, another bad comment, and you're like, ah, man, but this one hurts just a little less because you kind of got over the first one, and now you start to see that there's a bit of a pattern that you're always going to make content and people are going to like, and then there's things that people are just not going to like, and that's just with the territory. And so I almost feel like overcoming struggle and overcoming trolls and all this kind of stuff, it kind of becomes a skill. you,
It
you
is a
just
skill. Yeah.
you just kind of learn of how to dodge these bullets, and at the end of the day you then become like Neo in the Matrix, where you're just kind of like letting these bullets fly by you slow motion. It's just it's wild to me, but it's something that you learn to adapt with. And when you start focusing on the people that really love your stuff, and the things that people are doing to help you, or in this case when people if you're a musician and you're trying to play with others, like, I think that is such an important aspect, and you should try to play with people that are better than you. That's what I love about like guys like in Four Trips Ahead, my other band, where I am really always constantly challenged by these guys. They've been playing a lot longer than I have. They're really skilled at what they do, and they know so much content within their playing. It's like, man, I gotta, they'll play some old tune, and I gotta kind of just get in on it and learn to adapt and improv a little bit. And we'll switch up styles here and there, and we'll just have some fun. But at the end of those sessions, I always feel really good, because I always felt like I was challenged to do something different or something new. And when we're writing new content, we're always trying to push the boundaries, and we feel tight as a group. Those kinds of things are hard to come by. And when you're with people that really care about your skill set, value that and treasure that. Because when you're in, when you're in a band, sometimes it can be very difficult to find people that really want to do music for the sake of music. And I've experienced that myself too. So people, they think of it as a hangout rather than a rehearsal.
Yeah.
And those kinds of or people that don't really ignore the things that don't serve you, right? These sorts of people, they will just drain the energy. They're dragging it out, and it's not moving forward, and you feel like, what are we doing here? Are we actually rehearsing? Are we spending 6 hours in rehearsal, or are we just spending 6 hours in a room and only maybe an hour of rehearsal?
Yeah.
Those types of things, you gotta be very, very careful, and you got to listen to your gut as to what's going on and who are the people that are around me. And if they're the ones that are giving you critique about something, should you really listen to them? Or should you go seeking another resource too, on how to improve what it is that you're creating? Someone who has more experience, someone who has the best of intentions for you, and who and maybe even wants to put in the work with you. Those are the people that you want to listen to. Jay, I mean, like, in your experience, tell me a little bit about your overcoming in the early days of when you were creating your YouTube channel. You want to talk a little bit about how that was like for you when you started receiving comments in the beginning, and then how you move forward from that?
Yeah, that was an interesting journey. And first of all, I didn't start YouTube as like a business. I just like, hey, I'm going to put some cool videos up. This is back in 2010 when I started the channel, June 2010 to be exact. What I'll tell you real quick though about critics, though, before we get into this part, is I love what I think it's Gary Vaynerchuk said something to the effect of, usually other people's opinion about you is their opinion about themselves. And when someone's putting you down, a lot of times it's just because they're having a hard time. They're not confident in what they're doing. And it's almost human nature to not want somebody else to do something great with their life if you're not doing something great with yours, for whatever reason that you're not moving forward. So kind of put that in perspective, and maybe even instead of getting angry at the person throwing the darts at you, maybe feel sorry for them. It's like, man, I hope they make it through whatever time they're going through, because they must be going through a rough patch. They have very low self-esteem, very low confidence, especially if they're saying nasty stuff. There's a difference between criticism and just being a jerk, right? So you kind of
Totally.
change your perspective and just feel sorry for those people. And then that way it allows you not to stew in that anger, and you can just get over it and move on a lot quicker. But yeah, the early days of YouTube, 2010. And the funny thing is, my first video, dude, was just me picking up my acoustic, pressing record on this little flip camera, and going to sit on the couch and just singing the song that I'd just written called Never Leave. And then I get up from the couch and turn the video off. And I uploaded it because I didn't really, I didn't know anything about editing back in those days. That was my first YouTube video. Um, and then other videos after that. So I don't really, I got some comments here and there, but I never really, I guess I didn't worry about them so much because I wasn't taking YouTube as serious. It's like, I'm just putting out some cool stuff. And I really learned early on to focus on the people that I was helping. When I tell you what, guys, when I get a comment saying this video really helped me, or this video inspired me to pick up the guitar after 40 years, I laid it down when I was a teenager, and I saw this video, you inspired me to pick it back up, or to start practicing more, or do whatever, or this video helped me get through this challenging part that I didn't know how to get through, but you explain it. Man, those comments mean the world to me. It literally gives me chill bumps when I read those. So I'm not perfect at this, but I've done a pretty decent job of really showing my gratitude towards the people that support what I do versus the negative comments. However, there are times when I'll read something and sometimes that comment will make you question yourself. It's like, man, should I even be doing this? Do I suck that bad? Is this really? And you just kind of have to smack your own self in the face, kick your own rear end. It's like, look, get over it, man. Move on. This person does not have your best interest at heart. Their intent is not pure, and they could really care less about you. And I even went as far, Ken, and I don't recommend doing this, is to go in to the person's YouTube channel that made a negative comment. This is probably 7, 8, 9 years ago, and just trying to see what other comments they made. And I guess the system was, the channel was a little bit different back then. YouTube's always changing things. I believe there's a time though where you could see what they commented on. And maybe it was another platform. Can't remember if it was YouTube or something else, but I could see they had left just a buttload of negative comments on other people's videos. And I didn't need to do that, but it made me feel a little bit better. It's like, okay, well, this person's not, they don't care about you guys. That's my point of this whole thing. Realize that the people making the criticism, they don't really care about you. They're probably criticizing 10 other people before and after you. So that's just the nature of that person or where they're at in their life. So just know that, that's not a personal thing, right? It's a that person thing. So you really can't change that, nor should you try. So a lot of times I just leave it alone. Sometimes I'll delete it if it's really bad. I had to delete a comment the other day on a live stream. Somebody said something really, really derogatory, and I'm not going to get into it, but I just deleted it. And my other viewers saw it and was like, "Yeah, I'm glad you got rid of that person. We don't need that kind of stuff in here. It's not acceptable." So you have to know what you're willing to accept and what you're not. And it's okay to delete stuff. If it's something that's just bothering you, well, just get rid of it. You can do that.
Yeah. And on that note, with our community, that's why we have our community manager, Emily, and, our moderator, Bryden. We have a great crew that just helps our community just stay a positive force in this, mission that we at Mental Mastermind have. I totally get that. And, it's like you said, it's always like a reflection on that person. And when you're talking about also bringing value to people, I mean, you're not going to solve everyone's problems, but there's usually, one thing that you can do for somebody with your music or with your product or whatever it is. That's just the way the world works. And it's always a filtering process of going through the people that need what it is that you have versus people that don't. And, the people that don't need it, they may say some stuff, that's just part of nature, part of the world, right? So you're never going to avoid it. It's always going to be out there. It's like, I don't know, planets and asteroids. You know, they're going to be floating in there in space. Everything's fine. Then all of a sudden, an asteroid comes and knocks them out for a little bit. But after that, it's fine. You know, they're still around. So you're going to be fine too. You just got to keep trucking, keep doing what you're doing, and always remember to continue to provide value. That's really the key thing about, you know, being a modern musician, providing value for people in ways that they can walk away feeling, you know, happy and confident about themselves. You know, here we want to do that for you and uplift the metal community to doing something more for themselves, to make them feel that, hey, that my music, it does matter. And it does. Your music needs to be heard by the world. You know, the only way that we find the next generation of great artists is by us taking that step forward and saying, I don't care about the naysayers. I want to do what I want to do. This is what I want to do, and this is how I'm going to do it. You know, and we understand here that you guys, you know, may need some guidance on where to go, right? How to make that next step. And most of the time, that fear of not doing something or how people will judge you is because of your ignorance. So let go of your ignorance, take the step to learn what you need to do in order to get to the next level so that you don't have to feel you know, this doubt. You know, eliminate as much doubt as possible, and you can do that just by spending the time. Yes, it will take time, and that's the key element about all of this. It will take time. Just be confident, have faith, and the best faith you can put is in yourself. So I always, I never understood, you know, like people saying, like, oh, it's never gonna happen because X, Y, and Z, and it's like, you know, you really get to decide that. If you are saying X, Y, and Z, it's mostly because you're putting X, Y, and Z in front of you, you know, from preventing you to do it. So, and you know, I talk to you guys because like this way, because in some ways, you know, I talk to myself trying to get myself to always be on the path. You know, don't stray from the path, follow your north. Those things that my father used to tell me, you know, when I was on the stoop in my apartment, it was as a late, you know, teenager, it was really important for me to hear those words, because my father knew that it was going to be a road that was hard, but it was self-serving and it was going to be worth it. So um, express the gratitude, you know, the gratitude for the people in your life. They're not going to be around all the time, and you know, luckily my father is still around even after, you know, having his own sickness. But I just, you know, remember that the value is in the people that matter and not in the people that just want to tear your stuff to shreds. Like, don't pay any mind to that. They really don't matter. So, you know, focus on what it is that you can do to make yourself better. Okay. I'm speaking, I'm speaking to my younger self here when I say that, because I used to feel very impressionable about these sorts of things. So,
Well, I was
um,
too, man. I had low. I've told you guys I've had low, super low self confidence growing up, and I was always kind of a smaller kid back in those days, and
yeah,
it just felt that everyone was a little bit better than me, and I don't know where that stemmed from. I had a good childhood. You know, we weren't dirt poor, but we certainly weren't. You know, we're probably lower middle class, extreme blue collar family. We all worked very hard. You know, I started working manual jobs, you know, in my early teens. People would have a conniption over that these days, but that's just the way it was, the way life was. You know what I mean? Cutting
right.
grass and raking and stuff like that. But I just always, I don't know if income had something to do with that or if it was other things. Just always looked at myself as lesser. Um, and I think as a musician, even before you become a musician, you're still a musician, I believe, guys. And Ken, I'd love to know your thoughts on this. But even before you pick up your first instrument and get into music, you were a musician all along. I truly believe that. It was just this fire that was brewing inside. You never quite knew what that was, but when you picked up that drum set or guitar or started singing, you're like, okay, that's the thing that's been here. Now, on that note, I think I don't want to, put us all in the same category because everyone's different, but I do think musicians in general we tend to have a little bit stronger emotional side to us. So things might impact us a little greater and a little deeper, right? Because of that. And I think that if they didn't, we wouldn't be able to write such passionate music and such passionate lyrics. It's kind of part of it. But you mentioned, Ken, earlier that it's our choice to decide what we focus on. It's our choice to give the naysayers the attention versus the people that support us. And we have a choice to control that emotion when it's necessary.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the only thing that we don't choose is our intuition and what guides us. I think with you saying that about when you picked up that instrument, that guitar, that drum set, that microphone, and you felt that moment of, yeah, this is something that's a part of me, like something was awakened.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's a real thing, man, and I don't know. It's how do they say it? You feel it in the bones, kind of thing, right?
You really do, man. You really do. And that's just it, guys. So we really want you to focus more on the people that are supporting you. The other folks, they really don't deserve your time. They don't deserve your energy. So just know that. Do the best you can. Practice as much as you possibly can. Play as much as you possibly can. And you're not looking for everybody to tell you you're awesome all the time. That's not what we're talking about. I mean, if you've got people in your life, I've had several mentors throughout my life, and some today. I want their honesty. If I'm messing up in some area of life, whether it be my music or anywhere, I want them to let me know. Hey, I have a wife that'll let me know too. Sometimes if I'm off track on something,
Totally.
she'll look at me if I hit a sour note. She's like, "Hey, what was that?" So you want people that are going to be honest with you, but also have the proper intent for you to do well. That genuinely want to see you do well. If they don't have that intent, then their opinion really has no substance in your life at all. Because here's the thing about music. I'll tell you this about music. I know you'll agree with this, is that there's not a right and wrong way. Your music is just your music. And I think the last thing we need is for a musician to do things the right way, or like someone tells you should do them just so you can be heard and be in this category. I think we need a lot less than that, and more people out there taking a chance, doing something different, really pushing the envelope and just being creative, right? Not trying to make it like this or like that, or do it the right way like so and so says. I think we need more musicians out there just doing something different, and it just has their own unique stamp on it.
Yeah, totally, totally. Um, I hear it, and when we're in this moment of trying to figure out who we are, and being impressionable, you kind of take the words a little bit more to heart because you haven't built that confidence of who you are yet. And early on, and that's why we want Metal Mastermind to sort of be a place for metal musicians to come and huddle together and say, "Hey, we're on the same team. We're all trying to build ourselves to be better at what we do, and we encourage each other to do the same." I mean, for those of you who don't know, like Metal Mastermind started with me and Jason just keeping each other accountable. That's what it was. It's just, hey, where are you at with your music? And he was like, hey, where are you at with your music? And we
Yeah.
would just always meet. I think it was just a weekly basis to say, hey, this is what I'm doing. I'm planning on doing this. And then after a while, we were just like, we keep doing these things, and our meetings were just called Metal Mastermind sessions. And we
That's
were
what they
like,
were.
let's just turn this into a thing to help other people, because I think what we've been telling each other for the past several years is just that um, we need to share this information just as much as we needed the information ourselves. So, and we knew that the metal community needed some help, and that's where Metal Mastermind LLC was born. And we just did this, and now we have a community of 10,000 subscribers on YouTube, which again, thanks so much for your support.
Yeah. Thank you,
And
guys.
we've got people here on Discord talking to each other every day. We've got participants. We've got over like 2,500 students in our courses now. It's kind of amazing what we've built here, and that mission of always creating your own sound that we say at the end of every episode. It means so much when we see you guys help each other do exactly that. Just it's very heartwarming, and it shows really why the metal community is such an amazing place to be. I've always felt that in the pit, I was always, even though I was getting beat up, it was a beat up out of love. I always felt like everybody in the pit would always take care of each other. If you fell down, they'd pick you up right away and you're on your way. So I think if I were to be in a Walmart on Black Friday, I would rather be around a bunch of metalheads than I would be around the regular populace. I don't know about you, man, but that's how I feel.
Well, it would be Black Metal Friday, right? So,
Black
yeah.
Metal Friday.
So, dude, speaking of metal, do you have a song of the week, something that spoke to you this week, dude?
Oh, let me see. I was listening to Baroness, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Last Word is the song. Baroness. Very cool, very Mastodon kind of like sound. I was listening to them a bit this week. I've also been listening to a little bit of Impellitteri.
Yeah, Chris Impellitteri, yeah.
Yeah, I like the Eye of the Hurricane. And just been kind of I think another one was called Venom, if I remember. But there were a couple of tunes that I kind of reached into. I was pretty inspired by Impellitteri when I was in my youth, and I liked his neoclassicism because I was on a Yngwie Malmsteen binge at one point when I was young, of course.
Yeah, all of us go through that, man, and stay there sometimes too. I love Yngwie.
Yeah, and so I just kind of had a resurgence of some of that content for myself. It's a good time.
And a lot of people say Venom is like the first like I guess black metal band, Venom. Back in the 80s.
Yeah.
So I got some good stuff, dude.
No, I always think Venom. I always think of Spider-Man.
Yeah, Spider-Man. Yeah. I've got a really interesting track, and I don't know why I've never heard this because I'm an 80s kid, but it's a song called, and no, it's not the Johnny Cash song, but it's called Ring of Fire. It's by Def Leppard. And I just heard it on the way home from a gig Saturday. I was coming home from a gig out in Bradenton, and I just had some time just to kick back and listen to music. And this song popped up on my iTunes station, and I'm like, how come I've never heard the song? But it's called Ring of Fire by Def Leppard. It was actually a bonus track on the Hysteria album released back in 1987. Well, Def Leppard released in 1993 the album compilation called Retroactive, and they included that song on that album as well. So I'm like, holy crap. I mean, I love Hysteria. I know some people, the hardcore metal people, some of those don't care for that style or whatever. And then some do, I kind of like a lot of different styles, but I don't know. I love Def Leppard. I love Hysteria. That album means so much to me musically, but I'd never heard the song before. I'm like, and it doesn't sound like anything Def Leppard's ever done, which hence, it's a bonus track. I mean, it's moving, man. It's a bit heavier, and even the vocals are a bit, heavier on that. So I was just really surprised. I'm like, whoa, why have I never heard this song before? But yeah, cool tune.
Didn't Ghost do a cover of a Def Leppard song?
I don't know, dude. I haven't really ever listened to Ghost a whole lot.
Yeah,
and I'd like to go listen to them more because I know they're more of kind of like more of a rock than they are.
Yeah, metal. You should check it out. It's called. They did this Spillways.
Okay.
From Def Leppard. I love Ghost when they do these covers. They actually make really good covers. They know what they're doing when they make them. They also did another one from Army of Lovers called Crucified. That was such a great cover, man. You should check out some of them.
I'll have to check that out, man. Yes, I've heard a little bit of their stuff, and for whatever reason, I didn't dislike them. I just didn't continue. I mean, there's so much music out there, and we have so much limited time. But I'll like if you mention it, I'll definitely listen to it. And I'm like, okay, well, this is cool. But guys, that wraps up another session for Metal Mastermind. Hey, head over to metalmastermind.com. Check out our courses for all rock and metal musicians. We mentioned Alfred Potter earlier in the podcast. He has a course called Sweep Picking Master. And if you want to learn how to perform that technique, we're talking about Alfred's like just relentless practice schedule and his methodology behind the way he does that. You take this course, you will get really good at sweeping. So check that out, Sweep Picking Master. And obviously we've got our other courses, other guitar courses on there, theory, production, mixing, vocals, all the good stuff. And got a bass course coming out soon too. So head over to metalmastermind.com, guys. Check that out. And as always, until the next episode, create your own sound.